What is going on, gunfighters? Welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world, first-hand experience. Before we get into the bio today, hopefully it's going to be a fun just talk about some of the coolest guns ever, in my opinion. I thought about doing this show for a little while, and I thought, yeah, why not? Sometimes it's just nice to get together and talk and have fun conversations about guns, right? It doesn't have to be about tactics and how much better this round is ballistically than this round, and everybody knows you got to do it this way. And, sometimes it's good to just remember that we like guns, and we can talk about guns and have a good time. So, with that, a lighthearted gun discussion today about what I think are some of the coolest guns ever, period. With that, I'll put in the bio, then we'll get into the main topic. So, who am I? Who is this person talking to you from across the internet? Why should you listen? First and foremost, I am a Christian, a servant of God, and a follower of Jesus Christ. God has blessed me to do many things in my life, for I could do nothing apart from Him. U.S. Marine Corps combat veteran, did a couple of tours in Iraq. As an assaultman after my combat tours, I was an urban warfare instructor for the Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. Also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. Also did several years in law enforcement, LAPD. I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. Been a private contractor for a 3-letter government agency. That's all I'll say about that. Been blessed to be a state rifle and pistol champion and West Coast regional rifle champion. Won more shooting competitions with the talent that God's given me than I can actually remember. Was blessed to be the commander of a tactical team in a large metropolitan area. Our primary job, the reason we primarily existed, was to stop active shooters. I got the opportunity to head up and be the commander of that team. I grew up around guns, hunting and shooting and competing at a very early age. Been blessed to hunt all over this beautiful country, from whitetail on the East Coast to mule deer on the West Coast, and bear and elk and all manner of things. I've even been a professional big game hunter and guide. But again, most importantly, I'm a Christian. And I am your host, Michael Melito. Welcome to the podcast. Coolest guns of all time. What are they? In my opinion, I'm going to start off with the Scar 17. It is cool. Don't worry, for all you classic gun aficionados out there, there'll be some classic guns in here too, but the Scar 17 is a new classic cool. It is so cool. It brings the big bore battle rifle into the 21st century. It is rugged, it is reliable, it is light and handy. It's sub 8 pounds. It's used by special forces. That's got to up the cool factor. And if you want a specific model, I just saw in a gun store they have one in multicam that they said they got that way. It was like a factory option. How do you make a gun even cooler? You dip it in multicam and it comes out multicam, and now it's way cooler because it's multicam, right? Can you bug out without multicam and aviators? Debatable. Own a TV, so it should go without saying I don't play video games, but from what I understand, it's in quite a few of them. So a lot of the younger generation, the millennials, will think it's a cool gun, and it is a cool gun. If you've listened, you'll know that my go-to gun, like if I had to pick one long gun for the end of the world as we know it, peanut butter and chocolate hitting the fan, it would not be the Scar 17. It would not be a rifle. But if I had to pick a rifle, it would be my Scar 17. It's a phenomenal rifle. It's super cool. I don't know if these go in order, but the next one to me probably, at least so far, is going to go in order. The Scar 17 and then the 1897 trench shotgun. Yeah, the Winchester model 1897. Super cool. You can mount a gnarly bayonet on the end. That ups the cool factor. It was used in World War I, World War II, I think even into Vietnam. Also, you can just hold the trigger down and pump it, and it fires. A gun so cool you don't even have to pull the trigger to make it go off. How cool is that? But in all seriousness, is it a very cool shotgun? It's cool because we used it for so long in war fighting. It's cool because it was so nasty. Apparently the Germans tried to say that it was a war crime for us to use it. That's how nasty of a weapon it was. Think about the Germans telling you something you're doing is a war crime. If that gives you any idea of the devastation of the 1897 trench gun. And it looks cool, right? It's a good looking shotgun. The Winchester 1897 is a fine shotgun. It's super cool. Its history just adds to the cool factor of it. The fact you can put a big, long, gnarly bayonet on it is even cooler. And the fact the Germans didn't like it. A little bit of cool factor there. I got nothing against the Germans nowadays, don't get me wrong. My wife, she's not German, she's American, but her family hails from Germany. But we got to admit that the Germans of days of yore were not super cool. For the next one, let's go back even farther. Sharps rifles are pretty cool, right? What about a Sharps rifle that could grind your coffee? Yeah, that's a real thing. It really existed. I've done some research. I've heard about them, but apparently they were a real thing, if however obscure they were. But a Sharps rifle to grind your coffee. It could also grind, apparently it was sold to the army as being able to grind grain and things like that. But it was a real thing. A military rifle with a coffee grinder in the stock. That's pretty cool, right? Perhaps FN and Black Rifle Coffee Company will have a collaboration and they'll come out with a Scar 17 that grinds coffee in the stock. Perhaps they could bring it into the 21st century, and with the recoil, you could, grind the beans. And when you're done shooting a magazine, you got a fresh cup of coffee. That would be pretty cool. But only if they do it in multicam. Now, originally, I thought about the Colt Python. And the Colt Python is a really cool gun. Is it one of the coolest guns? I don't know. It's kind of been overplayed as much as I liked the first couple of seasons of Walking Dead. Colt Python's a beautiful, exquisite gun, but there may be a cooler one out there in this same category. You might know about the Colt Anaconda, but do you know about the Colt Kodiak? And I don't think something being obscure makes it cool, but I've seen and handled one Colt Kodiak. It was a fine machine. I think it looks better. It's got a kind of a matte brush stainless look, which I like. It has the unfluted cylinder, which I really like. And it's got a bear paw stamped on the side, which is pretty cool. As cool as the Colt Python is, I think the Colt Kodiak might be cooler. Now, I put this in the Patreon chat for the insider group, and they come up with some good ones. I don't agree with all of them, but some of them, yeah, I really do. And one of those was what they mentioned as the XM177, and I saw it and I thought, yeah, that's a cool gun. I had, if not the exact same model, a very similar one when I was in law enforcement. I assume we got it from the military. That happens quite a bit. I thought it was a Car 15. Maybe there's a difference, maybe there's not. There's probably guys that know way more about like the 1980s military M16 variants. That's not me. I assumed it was a Car 15. When I had it, it was full auto. Not much good for jackrabbit hunting, but it was a fine thing when I was doing my more specialized assignments in law enforcement. I carried that thing for quite a while. I really like the Car 15, so I'm going to mention the Car 15, but the XM177, I think the Air Force may have had one designated the GAU. Anyway, I'm going to call it the Car 15. That short, handy, light little carbine with that giant kind of flash hider. Simple sights. Super light, super handy. I really liked mine when I had it. And I got it, decades after those things came out and were probably given away to law enforcement because the military didn't want them anymore. I thought it was one of the best carbines I'd ever handled. That little Colt of mine was awesome. Light, handy, very good usable combat sights. Very simple. It's just a good weapon. Not every mission, but a lot of missions offered me that or the new M5. Again, not every mission, but a lot of missions I'd probably take that old Car 15. It's a good gun. Especially if I'm going to be doing highly mobile things running with it from house to house in a city in an urban environment. I think it's a fine carbine. If you want to maximize the cool, if you have one of these or a replica, you probably have a replica because the real ones are full auto, then you got to go to the range in Vietnam Tiger Stripe. That's really the coolest way to shoot these. Speaking of retro cool, you know what's cool? 1911s. You know what's also cool? 10mm. So, I mean, just mathematically, if you had a 1911 in 10mm, and you had the OG version of it, the original, put it in a bag, shake it up, you get a Colt Delta Elite. Doubles the cool factor of the 1911 and the 10mm because you put it together. That's how math works, right? The Colt Delta Elite in stainless, because if you can get stainless, always go stainless. I think the Colt Delta Elite is a really cool gun. Whether the original or the ones they're still making, they are beautiful, elegant powerhouses. If you are getting mugged late at night at a 7-Eleven, at an ATM, by grizzly bears, you'd be well served with a Colt Delta Elite. It is a really cool gun, which sent the Patreon chat into kind of a beehive of activity. One of the patrons, who probably wants to remain nameless on this, just kept insisting how cool the Bren 10 was. And I guess I always assumed that being good looking and being cool go hand in hand. But this patron begged to differ. He insisted the Bren 10 was a cool gun. He went on about its history and how Sonny Crockett used it in the first 4 seasons of Miami Vice. So because of his unbridled passion for this ugly beast of a pistol, I'm going to put it in here and give it an honorable mention. Now we mention the literal antique cool shotgun, the Winchester 1897. How about the modern cool shotgun? When I say cool shotgun, what do you think of? Benelli, right? The Benelli M4. The Benelli M4 is a beast. I had one very briefly and sold it because it was heavier than what I wanted it for. I wanted a do-it-all shotgun, not a strictly breaching combat shotgun. But it's an awesome gun. It makes it even more awesome that they introduced their Marine model. Now they call it something else. I think they call it the H2O. But if you want the coolest version of that, that's a pretty cool version, the Benelli M4 H2O. The Benelli M4 is a combat workhorse, right? That thing is big and powerful and nasty. It's a fine machine. That H2O model is really cool. I think of a cool modern shotgun, that by far immediately comes to mind more than any other. And for the coolest hunting rifle, I think that's got to go to the Ruger number 1. Single shot, falling block rifle. A guy shows up in deer camp with a single shot. You're like, that guy means business. He's pretty cool. He's got the confidence that he is going to take that animal down with one shot, and confidence is pretty cool. Not to mention, it's one of, in my opinion, the best looking rifles ever made, period, end of sentence. For the best version of that, in my opinion, it is the International with the full-length stock and in stainless, because again, if you can stainless, then stainless. If you're looking for a cool cartridge, my top pick would probably be 7x57, or known by an even cooler name, the 275 Rigby. A Ruger number 1 stainless International and 275 Rigby would be a very cool hunting rifle. The hunting rifle that Quigley Down Under would hunt with if he were real and hunting today. At least that's what I'd like to imagine. Alright, men, those are my top picks for some of the coolest guns. Hopefully you enjoyed just a lighthearted gun discussion. We talk about more substantial stuff here and the Alpha Male podcast, and especially Simple Man sermons if you want to listen to those. But I thought today would be nice just to have a good, fun gun discussion. Maybe it's your turn on a road trip to listen to something and you want something the whole family can listen to that's not dirty, that's not obscene. That's hard to find, sadly, in today's world, especially in music. Hopefully you got some entertainment value out of this. Hopefully it made you think about some cool guns and escape from some of the drudgery that can be today's modern society. If you value this podcast and you want to show it, scroll down, hit some stars, leave a review. If you want to show it in a real way and support, man up and become a patron. They get a lot of cool insider content. Some of that is just chatting about guns with some like-minded men. You know what's cool no matter what style you're into in guns? You know what's cool no matter what gun you have? Hitting your target. Hitting your target's pretty cool. You know why Han Solo is cooler than a stormtrooper? Because he hits his target. Coincidence? Well, Boba Fett, also cooler. Better marksman. Coincidence? I think not. Hitting your target and being cool go hand in hand. Your tactical tip of the day. It's a saying that comes, at least I first heard it in the competition shooting circles, where shooting fast is really important. You can't miss fast enough to win. It's almost always better to take your time and get your hit on that first shot, even if it's a tenth of a second, which may seem like a long time when you're trying to shoot fast. It's almost always faster to slow down on that trigger manipulation a tenth of a second or less, a few hundredths of a second, and hit your target the first time than to miss and have to do it again. If you're trying to speed up everything else in your draw and your transition first before you try and speed up that trigger manipulation. Be efficient, be smooth, be cool, and be accurate. That's your tactical tip of the day. The tactical verse of the day. Because you know what's cooler than hitting your target at the range? Hitting the mark in life. Aiming for the right target. Focusing on what's really important. God. Exodus 15, the Lord is a man of war. With that, men, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.